Okay, hi everyone. Hopefully we are live now. We just had a little glitch with LinkedIn, but it looks like we are live. I am really looking forward to having another live session. The previous few live sessions that I did on my new book, Tech Trends in Practice, have been really good. I've had lots of comments, so please feel free to um, share any comments you have, any questions you have. What I do in each of the live sessions is we focus on 5 of the 25 trends in my book. So today's session will focus on drones, on machine co-creativity, one of the coolest applications of AI that I see, where we use artificial intelligence to actually make us as humans more creative. I will talk about gene editing, another completely transformative technology, digital platforms, and cybersecurity and cyber resilience. So hopefully this will be interesting. What I was saying before we got cut off on LinkedIn earlier is that, like so many of us, I've been shocked this week by and saddened by the killing of George Floyd. What I really hope we will see is some systematic change in all of this to really give everyone equal justice and more equal opportunities, and we eradicate racism forever. What I feel, and I guess the sentiment is that there's absolutely genuine and legitimate frustration that I feel, that everyone else feels around the world, and hopefully this will lead to some change. And I think the only way we can really achieve real change is to make sure we actually vote the right people in that can make the right decisions for us. And I don't think we can do this through violence. I can understand that people are angry, but I think violence, and especially things like looting, is completely counterproductive. So what I would like to do is to just make sure everyone voices their opinion and go and vote next time round, to make sure that you've got the right mayors, you've got the right decision makers, you have the right attorneys, you have the right politicians that will make those decisions. So I just wanted to make that point. And also, we are still in the middle of this massive pandemic, so please stay safe when you go out and feel the need to demonstrate. I thought I'd just get this off my chest. So today's session, I will talk about drones and unmanned aerial vehicles. We'll talk about machine co-creativity and augmented design, genomics and gene editing, digital platforms, and cybersecurity and cyber resilience. So if you have any questions on any of those topics, or indeed any of the other topics I've covered in my book, then please let me know. It is so nice to see all of you on the stream. The last few sessions we had over 20,000 people joining us on the live stream on LinkedIn alone. And if you ever want to revisit any of those sessions, if you want to see some of the other 5 sessions that I've done on my book and on the other 5 tech trends, you can find them on my YouTube channel. You can rewatch them on LinkedIn, and you can listen to them on my podcast. Let me just see who is on this stream here. We've got so many people. Carsten from Germany. Hallo nach Deutschland. Amy, thank you very much. Babak. We've got Faith here from England. We have Elizabeth from Salanero. We have Jane, Sanjay, really good to see you all. Roberto from Chile, Ricardo from New York City, Gustavo from Mexico. So it's really good. Let me know where you're from. This is a really nice way for me to see who's on the stream. We've got Sandra from Croatia here, Kat from Pakistan, Diana from New York, Robert from Canada, Francisco from Lisbon. So thank you so much for joining in. Let me dive into the first topic then. So the first topic I want to talk about today is drones, or unmanned aerial vehicles that they're sometimes called. So drones are basically aircrafts that are piloted either remotely or autonomously. And sometimes when we think of drones, we think of the nice little quadcopters that we can buy for not so much money as little toys and fly them around. But they usually take off vertically, but we also have completely different types of drones. If you think about military drones, they're usually firm, fixed wing, almost like aeroplanes that take off on runways that are multi-million, if not billion-dollar vehicles. So a complete different forms from small, inexpensive to very expensive and very sophisticated. Usually they have a number of sensors on them, from GPS, which is geopositioning sensors, to gyroscopes, to accelerometers, to infrared cameras, to normal cameras, to first person view cameras, lasers, and so on. And basically they have features like return home feature, for example. So if you've ever been flying your own drone, you see this, you can't see the you can't see your drone, you just simply press a button and it will find its way back home. And modern drones also usually have those no-fly zones programmed into them, so you can't fly them near airports and other things. And in business, we're now seeing drones becoming really relevant, especially during this pandemic, where more and more deliveries are trying, or where we were trying to take people out of the supply chain, make it more contactless, and we've seen drone deliveries. There are certain places and certain companies that have experienced drone delivery services for some time now. So Amazon is a great example. They've been experimenting with drones for some time. Wing Aviation is another company. They are actually a Google or an Alphabet subsidiary, and they have actually received so the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, have given them the right and the permission to make drone delivery in Blacksburg in Virginia. Companies like UPS have also received FAA approval to make drone deliveries, and companies like JD.com, the Chinese e-commerce giant, they have now been delivering using drones for a long time, both within their own supply chains as well as directly to customers. And when we think about drones, we think about delivery drones, those nice little cute drones, maybe drones that can deliver our parcels and packaging. But some of the JD.com drones are almost massive helicopters that can carry complete container loads of goods. What is interesting is when we then think about passenger drones. In my last live stream, I talked about self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles. What we are now seeing is the rise of passenger drones. So the city of Dubai is a great example. They want to have an autonomous drone, a self-flying drone taxi service up and running by this year. I'm not sure whether the pandemic has put this behind plan a little bit, but one of the forerunners in making this technology happen was Volocopter. They are a German drone company that is backed by Daimler, the parent company of Mercedes-Benz. And what they have developed is this two-seater 18-rotor air taxi that basically will go to a pickup point, pick you up. You just sit in the drone, and it will take you to the pickup, the drop-off point near you. And this will happen all completely autonomously. Another leading company in this is EHang, and they have developed some really cool passenger drones. And what they are now doing is this is a Chinese company, and they're now opening a resort, a hotel complex in China that is completely themed around self-flying drones. I believe the hotel is actually on an island, or or an inlet, and you basically are taken to the hotel, which is actually in the shape of a drone, by drone. And then you can have drone excursions where you explore the areas, you fly out to the sea or into the jungle and so on. So this is going to be really interesting. The other area where I see a lot of use for drones is search and rescue drones. So we're now seeing tiny little drones that can fly into really dangerous areas, into collapsed buildings, for example. We see this in rescue missions where drones can help to find people with their night vision cameras and so on. A really cool example comes from Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. What they're now doing is they're using drones with machine vision to monitor the beaches, and if a swimmer is basically in trouble and needs rescuing, the drone would automatically dispatch and issue a life ring to that person. So we've seen similar things in Africa where drones can now deliver defibrillators if someone has a heart attack in remote areas and so on. And a really cool example also is the Air One. This is a firefighting drone. So if you think about firefighters, they normally need a big ladder to reach really tall buildings. What you can now do is you can take the hose can be taken up by drone and taken into buildings really high up as well. Then we're seeing drones using for law enforcement, for example. We've seen this now during the pandemics where we have drones patrolling certain areas, and we've seen this now in police in China too, where the police uses drones to watch the traffic. And I don't know whether you've seen the clip where basically a drone was flying next to a motorcyclist and basically then telling the motorcyclist to better be wearing a helmet. So these are all really interesting use cases that will transform our businesses. The slightly more sinister, scary use case is the way the Army and the Air Force are now using drones. So the US Army, for example, has been trialing drones that are tiny. They're palm-sized drones that soldiers would take with them, and if they are then trying to advance into a new area or into a certain part of the town, they can simply fly the drones there with cameras. They have they can use either smartphones or glasses to view what is happening there, so they can explore areas before they actually advance into them. The other area is drones that are used for warfare. We now have companies like the US, the UK, Russia, China, Israel that are all using autonomous drones, self-flying drones in wars and to attack targets. So most countries basically have the law that they say, okay, the drone can't make this attack autonomously. It can fly there, it can identify a target, but before it fires a rocket to potentially kill someone or destroy a target, a human drone pilot needs to be there to make that decision for ethical reasons, obviously. What is interesting is that the US Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, DARPA, they have develop what they call a drone squad, or what I call a drone swarm, where you basically have a group of drones. So what they did is they had a group of drones that was basically released from a fighter jet or plane, maybe 50, 20 of them, and they would coordinate the attack. They would work together to then destroy a target, which I find quite scary. So let me just have a look at the stream. Hopefully this was interesting, a short overview of drones. Obviously, if you want to dive into any more of this, have a look at my book, and also there are lots more articles in my on my YouTube channel, and lots of videos on my YouTube channel, lots of articles I've written about drones and how they're being used. I'm just having a look. Brian from Iraq, hello. I've got someone from Dallas, from Madrid. I've got Javier from Curacao, hello, from the Dutch Caribbean. I have someone from Lexington in Kentucky. I've got someone from Nigeria. I've got Edlison from Brazil, Christina from Texas. It's so nice to see you all here. I've got Arman from the Ivory Coast, Alexandro from Mexico. As I said, feel free to ask questions if you want to know anything in more detail about drones, about any of the other tech trends I talk about, let me know. The second trend I want to talk about today is machine co-creativity, or augmented design. And sometimes we think, okay, machines can never be creative, right? Or can they? So machine co-creativity or augmented design basically refers to our ability, or to the ability of machines to be creative, and in particular enhance the work of humans in their creative and design processes. And I don't know whether you've watched the interview I did with Professor Marcus du Sartoy. You can watch it on my channel as well, where we talk about whether machines can be creative. And Marcus has written a book called The Creativity Code, which I absolutely loved. And basically his argument there is that art and innovation actually can be enabled by AI, and that art is actually surprisingly mathematical, made up of lots of patterns. If you think about the structure of music, of paintings, of dance, and quite often those patterns can be hidden from humans, and artificial intelligence is actually quite good at identifying those patterns and learning those and applying those patterns in a new way. So this basically is the foundation of artificial intelligence and machines being creative. And we've had this now for some time. We've seen this in music. One of my favorite examples is the musician and composer David Cope. And he basically developed an algorithm called EMI, or Experiments in Musical Intelligence, where he trained an algorithm to compose music. So he basically took pieces of the composer back and basically deconstructed those. And basically what they were arguing is that this is basically how really productive composers worked in the past. They couldn't compose sometimes thousands of different symphonies and hundreds of operas and so on without deconstructing their music and then putting it back together. So they had tiny little fractures of bits of music that they now worked, and they then put them back together into new patterns. And David Cope basically trained this EMI to compose music based on certain composers. And what was interesting is that music for us sometimes is this intrinsically human ability, it's something creative. Music, we need to feel emotionally. So he created this little staged performance where 3 pieces of music were produced basically and presented to an audience of musical experts, and one of the pieces was composed by Bach, one was composed by a human in the style of Bach, and the other one was composed by the artificial intelligence algorithm. And then they all had to vote which one they believed was from the composer, which one was from the AI, and so on. And what was interesting is that they actually voted for the one that was produced by the AI because it was emotionally the most engaging. And this for me is interesting, that we sometimes think that we are the only ones, we are humans, the only ones that can come up with new music, we can come up with new art, and actually machines can do this too. So I don't know whether you've seen the auction house Christie in 2018 became the first auction house to sell an artwork created by an AI algorithm. So the painting was called The Portrait of Edmund de Bellamy, and it sold for almost $500,000, nearly 45 times its original estimate, which again gives you an indication that there is obviously some interest in all of this. We've seen this in film as well, where artificial intelligence can now put together films. So IBM's Watson AI was used to create a movie trailer. So basically the algorithm was given the movie and then it cut the trailer together based on what it knows and what we like. And I've talked about another example, Wimbledon. I've had the pleasure to go to Wimbledon last year. Sadly, this year we won't have Wimbledon. But the tennis tournament, very famous, but Wimbledon as an organization has really transitioned from an organization that organizes a tennis tournament to one that now has become a data-driven media company. And they are using artificial intelligence now to produce the match highlight reports. In the past, it took an editor a good hour to cut bits together and then sell the 2-minute summaries to the different media organizations. Nowadays, this is completely done autonomously by AI. Another one of my favorite example is dance. I love dance and I love watching it. And one of the best dance choreographers, Wayne McGregor, has used AI and is using AI in their studios. In their studio, they have a wall that is a completely digital wall. They have cameras. They watch what their different dancers can do. And now the AI will understand what a certain dancer can do, what the certain style is, and then can recommend the next possible moves. And what Wayne McGregor said is that they've actually come up with so innovative dance routines that he would never have thought of, or the dancers wouldn't even thought that they could do these kind of moves. So another great example. And we've seen algorithms from Google, for example, that can now write poetry. One of my publishers is Kogan Page, that published 2 of my books. And what they have recently released a book that was actually co-written by artificial intelligence called the Superhuman Innovation. So a book written by a human plus an AI. In business, what we're seeing is obviously all these creative algorithms are relevant because they can now be used to write content for companies, but they can also help us in what we call this generative design. So one of the first examples was a collaboration between the software company Autodesk, that produces design software, and Philippe Starck, one of the best known designers. And they basically worked together. So Philippe Starck used the generative design module within Autodesk to come up with a new design for a chair. And again, basically you give the algorithm certain parameters of what you want the chair to do, the amount of material you want to use, and then the generative design software will come up with hundreds of different designs that will deliver on the brief, and then you can work with the software to tweak it or simply pick one of those designs. And actually, their final design was an award-winning chair that they named rightly AI, and this was launched at the Milan Design Week in 2019. And nowadays, we see companies like NASA, General Motors, and Airbus using generative designs in their day-to-day operations. So this is, again, a fascinating trend. Okay, let me have a look who is on this stream before we move on. We have we've got Stuart, hi. Krishna, we've got Senk, hello. We've got someone from Madrid. Let me see, we've got someone from Poland. Irina, really good to see you again. Good question. Can a machine be called an artist? For me, this is a fundamentally interesting question. What is an artist? Because for me, what is creativity, if you start with that? For me, creativity is when you take knowledge from often two different areas and you put them together to create something new. And machines can very well do that. They can now produce music, they can produce poetry. There was even a book that was nominated for a book prize in Japan, a fiction book that was written by a machine. So AI is making huge progress in it, and I can't see any reason why we couldn't call it an artist. But for me, the really interesting bit is combining the power of machines and the power of humans to make them super creative. Okay, my next trend, again, one of the 25 trends I talk about in my book is genomics and gene editing. This is probably some of the most fascinating areas of research. Not one that I'm a complete expert in, but one that I had to include in the book because of its potential. Genomics is basically this interdisciplinary field of biology that focuses on the understanding and manipulation of the DNA or genomes of living organisms. So all living cells contain DNA, and DNA basically determines the traits that a cell will pass on when it divides. So a DNA can be thought of as a code, and the code that basically governs the production of new proteins when a cell splits to create new living cells. And what we've seen over the recent years is this massive improvement in our understanding of DNA. The first DNA was accurately sequenced in 2003, but this involved massive computing power. It was super expensive, very sophisticated software, and nowadays this has become very standard. You can now get your gene sequenced for $100. So with this increased understanding of genomics, gene editing has become possible. So this is basically a group of technology that enables us to perform genetic engineering in order to change the DNA or the genetic structure of living organs. So, and this is developing at such a rapid pace that we can now alter and understand DNAs really simply and also change them. And we basically change a DNA or edit a DNA by removing or basically physically cutting little sections from the DNA out of the whole DNA strand. And this opens up completely new possibilities that are almost unlimited. So if you think about this, it means that we can change the characteristics of any organism, of any living organism that has inherited traits. So we can now use this to give children a immunity to diseases and illnesses that their parents are susceptible to. Or we can change plants. We can genetically edit crops and make them more resistant to pests and diseases. And in medicine in particular, we now can develop medicines that are particularly tailored to a certain genetic makeup. So this is what I believe we will see in the future. We'll see medicines that will be completely personalized to you, that work with your genetic fingerprint and sort your problems out. And one of the biggest advances in all of this is this CRISPR-Cas9. This is basically described as this off-the-shelf solution for gene editing, and is making it really easy to edit strands of DNA. And we're now seeing this in lots of different ways. So we've seen a good example is Chiron Biotech, that is now working on creating super horses. So they are modified to run faster and jump higher. And obviously, when we come to genetic editing, especially when it comes to changing humans, there are huge concerns, huge ethical issues. We can now change humans. You can potentially create completely new genetically modified species of humans. And if you then think about having a super advanced physical body with your genetics, and then using some of the artificial intelligence and the augmented human technology that I talked about in my first live stream on my book, where we have bionic body parts and machine computer interfaces and brain computer interfaces. This is when it becomes really fascinating and also mind-blowing, and also really ethically challenging. We talk about this. Urian from the Netherlands has just joined. We've got Mesfin from Ethiopia, Deepak from India on the stream. Really good to see you. Let me know if you have any comments. Lots of people saying this is fascinating, incredible. Thank you very much for the nice comments. So gene editing and genomics was my other trend. My fourth trend that I want to talk about is digital platforms. This is now a new type of business model. It's not that new actually, but a type of business model that makes a huge impact at the moment. And digital platforms are basically mechanisms or networks that facilitate some sort of valuable connections and exchanges between people. And these exchanges may include communicating, sharing information, selling products, or offering services. So if you think about companies like Facebook, Uber, Amazon, Airbnb, they're all really well-known examples of platform businesses. The thing is that platforms are not new. So platform businesses have existed for years. If you just think about a shopping center, this is basically a platform business. It says you come here, we get all the different shops to be located in this area. You have a centralized parking space, it makes it easy, and then you can go and shop. In the same way that newspapers are platforms that connect readers and advertisers. The difference is that we now have digital platforms, and they make it so much easier to give people access to their platform. So we don't have to drive to a shopping mall to shop, and we don't have to buy a newspaper to get ads. We can all just get this on our phones, on our tablets, and our computers. And because they're digital, it makes them extremely scalable. So a shopping center has clear limitations. You can't have all the stock that you can have in an Amazon warehouse, for example. You can't have all the sizes available in your fashion retailer. You can't have all the colors available, whereas the scalability is clearly there online. And also you can't have a shopping center that is offering everything in the way that companies like Amazon and Alibaba are trying to position themselves as the place to buy anything. And it also makes it scalable because you have no limit on how many people you can have. So on your platform, as long as you have the IT bandwidth available, you can have billions of people going to your platform every day, like we have with what we see with Facebook and YouTube and many other platform businesses. And so it's extremely scalable. It goes beyond borders, and platforms have this added advantage of collecting data. So in physical environments like shopping malls, you can collect some information on where we are going as humans. You can do a footfall analysis. On online platforms, you can watch everyone and everyone's individual steps. So what are they picking up? What are they looking at? How long do they look at certain things? What else have they looked at? And all of this data then becomes a treasure trove to make this experience for customers better. And this has turned traditional businesses inside out. So we've seen this in the hotel industry. If you compare a typical comparison is Marriott hotels, which have invested in property, build hotels, compared to Airbnb that hasn't got hotels, it just has a platform to sell them and sells rooms, and it brings together people that have rooms available with people that want to book them. And this has completely changed the whole hotel industry. That in the past, if you had a big hotel property in the middle of places like Florence, you would dominate this market. You could ask for a premium. Now someone that has a flat in Florence and has a spare room available can suddenly compete with this. And we see the same in the taxi industry, where we have companies like Uber and Didi in China, who are very powerful organizations that have developed platforms that are used for us to get our rides. Other companies, obviously, there's the social media networks, the Twitters, the Instagrams that connect users, especially to other user-generated content. And we have got shopping platforms like Amazon, eBay, and Alibaba with their Taobao e-commerce platform. So this is challenging lots of businesses I work with when we talk about digital transformation and some of the trends they need to look at. We very often explore this. How can they create a platform? How can they enter this new world? How can they connect customers, give them a really valuable experience, and therefore benefit from the data collection, the scalability that this could bring, and potentially transform their business model. And even if you don't at the moment as a business do this, there's a real danger that someone could come into your industry with a platform business model and disrupt the entire industry, like we've seen in ride sharing and taxi and in hotels and in other areas. Okay, let me have a look at the stream. I've got Khalid from Dubai. Hi, we've got Otsutsi from Botswana. I've got Peter from Kenya. We've got someone from Barcelona, Jose from Texas, Zirjan from Serbia. We've got someone from Nashville in Tennessee. Sometimes I can't see your names in this platform if your LinkedIn profile isn't public. Really good to see you all here from India. I've got Eoic from France. We've got some from Paris, Stefan from Canada. Thank you so much. Anne from Paris. Hi, Anne. The last trend I want to talk about today is cybersecurity and cyber resilience. This is something that is becoming increasingly important. So cybersecurity is basically a company's ability to avoid the increasing threat from cybercrime, such as cyber attacks or data thefts. And cyber resilience is a company's ability to mitigate the damage and carry on once systems or data breaches have occurred or systems have been compromised. So in our always on, always connected world, we see the increasing flow of data. Companies need to be connected. Their systems are interconnected 24/7, and this also makes businesses vulnerable to cyber attacks. So we've seen this recently when everyone started working from home during the pandemic that we're experiencing at the moment, and suddenly lots of companies became vulnerable because people were logging on with their home laptops that might not have the same security settings on them, and the existing security systems were a bit overwhelmed by all of this. We've seen data being then suddenly stored on private machines, and all of these are real risks, because IBM found that the average cost of a data breach to an organization, especially when personal data was stolen, is now over $3.8 million. So equating to a cost of around just under $150 per stolen record. So there's a big price tag to all of this if we get this wrong. And we also see different types of attacks now. One of the the more common ones is ransomware attacks, where basically your computer system is taken over or shut down and access is denied by malicious people. We've seen this where 23 local government agencies in the state of Texas recently were attacked, and they then asked for ransom to free up and make those services available again. We've seen social media attacks. If you don't have a really good password, if you don't protect your social media sites, even the Metropolitan Police's Twitter account got hacked recently. And one of the most freaky examples of and most advanced attacks is a deep fake attack. So I talked about this ability of voice generation in my previous live streams as one of the key tech trends. So this ability of chatbots and voice technology. And if you combine this with artificial intelligence, what you can now do is you can clone someone's voice. So you can basically leave messages, so in my voice, to on someone else's phone to make them do something. You can even have conversations with them in your own voice. We can now clone not only voices but also faces, facial expressions, photos, and all of this makes it so much harder. So one of the things that one of the skills we need to build in our organizations is this critical thinking and awareness of ransomware attacks, of deep fake attacks, even of simple phishing emails. They're, I believe, still the number one threat to organization, where you get an email that looks legitimate from a supplier, from a company you work with, and you say, please check this document, or please click on this link, and suddenly you've downloaded a virus or given them access to your accounts. So we have to be extremely careful. And what we really need to do is we need to have good data governance. We need good data security in place. Some of the technologies I find super exciting are things like homomorphic encryption. If you don't know what this is I've done a video on my YouTube channel where I explain this, but it's basically the ability to completely secure data and be able to manipulate and access this data without actually ever accessing the real data, but a proxy of this data. And we need network security. And I believe that artificial intelligence is actually one of the weapons that we can use against cyber crime, where if we have really sophisticated security systems in place that are enabled by machine learning and AI, they can monitor what is happening. They can very easily identify that you're being hacked at the moment, that someone is accessing data that don't normally access. So these artificial intelligence algorithms monitor what is happening day in and day out in your company. And if something happens that doesn't quite look right, they can then check and put extra security measures in place to make sure that it's actually you. So hopefully that was interesting. This was my last trend for today. I'm super happy now to answer some of your questions. Before I do this, let me just have a quick look through the stream here, who else is on. We've got someone from Nigeria, Zainab from Tehran, Karina from Guatemala, Christina from Malaysia. It's so nice to see you all here. I really feel blessed that you all come, listen, find it valuable. As I said, if you have any particular questions, let me know. Let me just see. We had one question here from Sunaz Ulia, who is the Vice President of AI and Digital Assistance at Oracle. You're asking, how can organizations scale a digital assistant rollout as everyone learns to adopt the new normal ways of working? Yeah, very interesting question. I'm not sure I have a perfect answer for this. I think rolling out any new technology, I think, requires educating educating people, informing them, communicating really well, and letting them experiment with this. So with digital assistants, what I've seen working very well is where they use them internally. So I've seen this in companies like Unilever that now uses really sophisticated chatbots in their onboarding process. So when they employ new employees, they can ask questions, they can use the digital assistant. And I think the key is to make sure the technology is working, that you have that is and monitoring this. I think, do people get frustrated with this? Sometimes people, or in the past, I've seen companies launch digital assistants, and then they didn't really monitor well the reactions of people, that they were getting frustrated. So again, having this ability to listen to those calls, making sure they're answering the right questions, engaging customers, and then having the right technology and the right scalability in place. And I think, again, having a good cloud infrastructure in the background will make sure that this all happens and works well, and you can roll this out safely. Really interesting summary. Thank you very much for your nice comment. I can't see your name, it just says LinkedIn user. If you want to make sure I see all your comments, make sure your LinkedIn profile is on public. Mohammed from Sudan, Tenzin from New York City, good to see you. Faisal asking, should we do more in less time? Very good question. I think all of this technology is enabling us to do more in less time. JT Shim is asking a question. Sorry, the question just disappeared. I've got so many questions coming in. One of the things I will do is I will read through some of those questions, and I will go back to them and try to answer them. What I've done in every of the live streams here is I spend some time on my YouTube channel, on my LinkedIn channel, to see if there are any questions that I haven't been able to answer. I have Nidika Yada from New Delhi making a good comment. Let me just copy this across so I don't lose this again. What about following new innovations? So pollution to be charged and only essential and innovative solutions to be built in limited quality. Great. So you're saying almost like having more environmentally friendly solutions, using technology to make sure this happens, just like we take our body temperature and then measure it, and then medicine is given if the temperature is too high. Should we do the same with pollution or global warming? That is a very good point. And I think this is something we discussed in the last live stream as well, this whole need for sustainability, really thinking about what products we use, what technology we use, where this technology has come from, whether this is ethically sourced, it can be recycled afterwards. They're all really important points. And as you say, Nitika, technology can help with all of this. So hopefully in the future, I think you were suggesting that in the future we have systems and models on our phones that can help us, whether things are naturally sourced, where the food is coming from, whether it is a sustainable supply chain, the impact on the economy, and so on our oceans. Really good point. Thank you very much for sharing that. Perfect. Gerd from Belgium. Hi, Gerd. Let me know if there's anything else. I've got Gonzalo asking, what platform do you use to transmit this webinar? I use StreamYard. This is a platform that allows me to live stream to my social platforms. Very good. What I will do is I will come to an end here. I will answer any of your questions and try to do this. And I will be back next week with my next live stream. And I will talk about the final 5 trends in my book, which will focus on quantum computing, on robotic process automation, mass personalization and micro moments, 3D and 4D printing, and nanotechnology and material science. So really crazy stuff there. Very futuristic, and hopefully you will join back in. I will share all of this. If you want to know when I'm streaming, join my newsletter either on LinkedIn or on my website, where I always announce when I'm going back on live streams, or join my LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, where I also always announce what I'm doing. You have a fantastic day. Stay safe, and I will speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.